At this point in the course, you have built a strong foundation. You understand governance, risk management, controls, and documentation. Now, you arrive at one of the most important truths in modern cybersecurity. Most security failures are identity failures. This is why the ISM places such strong emphasis on identity and access management. When you think about identity under the ISM, you are not just thinking about usernames and passwords. You are thinking about who can do what, on which system, and under what conditions. Identity is the gateway through which every other control operates. If identity is weak, even the strongest technical controls can be bypassed. The ISM treats identity as a life cycle, not a one-time configuration. That life cycle begins when a user or service is created, continues through changes in role or responsibility, and ends when access is removed. Each stage carries risk if not managed deliberately. This is why identity appears across governance, protection, detection, and response principles. You start with users. Under the ISM, a user is any entity that can access a system. This includes people, service accounts, applications, and automated processes. One of the most common beginner mistakes is focusing only on human users and ignoring non-human identities. The ISM does not make that distinction. Any identity that can access a system must be controlled. When you manage users properly, you ensure that identities are unique, traceable, and accountable. Shared accounts weaken accountability and make incident investigation difficult. The ISM expects access to be attributable so that actions can be linked to a responsible party. This is fundamental to governance and assurance. Next, you need to understand authentication. Authentication answers a simple but critical question. How do you prove that an identity is who it claims to be? The ISM does not prescribe a single authentication method. Instead, it expects authentication strength to be appropriate to the risk. For low-risk systems, simple authentication may be acceptable. For high-risk systems, stronger authentication is expected. This might include multi-factor authentication, device trust, or other mechanisms. The principle is always proportionality. Stronger risk requires stronger proof of identity. Authentication alone is not enough. Once identity is proven, the next question is authorization. Authorization determines what an authenticated identity is allowed to do. This is where privileges come into play. Privileges define actions, read data, modify data, administer systems, approve changes. Under the ISM, privileges must be intentional, justified, and limited. Excessive privileges dramatically increase the impact of compromise. A low privilege account limits damage. A high privilege account amplifies it. This is why the ISM strongly emphasizes least privilege. Least privilege means that identities are granted only the access they need to perform their duties and no more. This applies to users, administrators, and services alike. Least privilege is not about mistrust. It is about reducing blast radius. You should also understand that least privilege is not static. As roles change, access must change too. One of the most common causes of security incidents in government is access that was once justified but never reviewed. The ISM expects access to be reviewed periodically to ensure it remains appropriate. Another critical concept is privilege access. Privilege accounts have the ability to change systems, override controls, or access sensitive data. Because of their power, they require additional safeguards. The ISM expects privilege access to be tightly controlled, monitored, and auditable. If you manage privilege access properly, you ensure that administrative actions are deliberate, traceable, and temporary where possible. Standing privilege access increases risk. Controlled, time-bound access reduces it. This is a direct application of risk-based security principles. Identity and access management also plays a key role in detection and response. When identities are well managed, unusual behavior stands out. Logs become meaningful. Investigations become faster. When identities are poorly managed, everything blends into noise. The ISM recognizes this and links identity controls closely to monitoring requirements. You should also see how identity supports accountability. When access decisions are documented, approved, and reviewed, responsibility becomes clear. If something goes wrong, organizations can understand not just what happened, but why access existed in the first place. This protects both systems and people. Another important aspect is service and application identities. Automated systems often operate continuously and at scale. If these identities are overprivileged or poorly protected, attackers can exploit them silently. The ISM treats these identities with the same seriousness as human users. Identity also intersects with governance and documentation. Access policies define intent, standards define requirements, procedures define how access is granted and reviewed. Evidence proves that identity controls are operating. Identity management is one of the clearest examples of how governance and technical controls work together under the ISM. The most important thing to remember is this: identity is the control plane of cybersecurity. Firewalls, encryption, and monitoring all depend on identity decisions being correct. When identity is strong, many other controls become easier. When identity is weak, no amount of tooling can fully compensate. By understanding identity and access management through the ISM lens, you move beyond thinking about logins and start thinking about trust, accountability, and risk. That shift is essential for operating secure government systems at scale.